Please.
Opening scene, day. Scene 1, doctor's waiting room lobby. Frank Jackson, 56, a slender man with a brown short haircut, a blue-collared button-down shirt, black dress pants and black dress shoes, sporting a silver watch. While browsing through a magazine, Frank twitches in his chair, giving us the feeling that he has been waiting a while for someone. The chairs in the room are wooden chairs that don't appear to be very comfortable. Frank puts down the magazine on the chair beside him, impatiently glancing at his watch in frustration.
How long can this take?
Frank glances at his watch again as he picks up the magazine beside him that he just put down a second ago. He turns to see Ed Jackson, 25, entering the waiting room, sporting a business look with a black suit jacket, a white collared shirt, black dress pants, and a pair of expensive shoes. His personality comes off as cocky and arrogant.
Son, you're back. Did it go all right?
Just a bunch of doctor talk.
What do you mean, son?
There's a 50% chance that I have it, but you know.
Hold on, 50%?
Yeah, but I know I don't have it.
What about the results?
Results are coming in later. Let's leave this place.
Both Frank and Ed leave the lobby. Lights go black. Scene 2, inside Frank's car. Day. Frank is driving his son Ed home and decides to make a quick detour to see a friend of his, Nick Kinderwood, 50, an autistic man to whom Frank sold his home and with whom he has been friends for years. Nick Kinderwood lives on the same street as Frank, in a small, modest home with his part-time carer, Bob Brown.
I'm not sure how to get into this, son, but this is an urgent matter. It needs to be discussed.
Just because I told you I might have it doesn't mean we need to talk about it. Besides, I think there's a 50% chance that right now your car could get struck by another driver and it could kill us both.
You know, son, I know you're hungry, but the chances of that outcome are much slimmer than what the doctor told you this morning.
Can we just drop the subject? If I'm agitated, it's just because I don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay, fine. I'll drop it.
Frank takes a detour from his normal route home and goes left instead of right. Ed notices this change in direction.
Hey, why are we going left?
Just making a detour en route to a friend's house. Is that okay?
I have business to take care of at home.
Can't it wait, son?
No, I don't think so.
Why is that?
There's this guy that is awaiting my call from last week. I misplaced his number. I need to search for it on my desktop.
It's urgent.
No, but I need to get it done, and I'm not up to visiting anyone.
I promised him a visit today.
Ed scoffs.
Ed, I can see the doctor visit has upset you.
Look, I told you to drop the subject.
You know, son, you're not the easiest person to deal with.
Hey, I am who I am. Take it or leave it.
You don't see my point.
Do you have one? Because I don't have time to waste with this back and forth game.
Life is not a game, and you don't make all the rules, son. It's about compassion, understanding, and heck, a little bit of respect as well.
Don't start with me, Dad. I'm not in the mood.
Frank shakes his head as the lights dim and go to black. Scene 3, Nick's house, early afternoon. Lights come on stage. We get our first look inside at Nick Kinderwood, 50, wearing black track pants and a grey t-shirt with a pair of sneakers. We know from his body language and speech patterns that he suffers from a disability. This disability is called autism. As we enter his home, we see directly to our left an old oval wooden table with 2 wooden chairs. On the table, we can see 2 placemats that of each other. Moving to the far right, we see a wooden island with a white countertop. Below it, we have 3 wooden cabinet doors, along with 3 smaller wooden drawers for the silverware. On the top of the island, we see 2 coffee cups placed on saucers with a stirring spoon on each of them. Both coffee cups are on a silver tray. We get the feeling that the coffee is not just for Nick, but may also be for a guest. To the left of the tray of coffee, we see a plate of chocolate chip cookies. Nick sits at the table with a notepad in hand, writing down ideas. He seems very focused while writing his notes. Nick gets startled as he hears a loud knock. Nick goes over to greet Bob Brown, his homemaker, 58, who is waiting at the front door. Bob Brown is sporting a pair of blue jeans with a blue-collared button-down shirt and a pair of loafers. He is a slightly heavy-set man with a friendly and kind professional demeanour.
Afternoon, Nick.
Hi, Bob.
How's life treating you?
Fine. You?
Just the same as always. Thanks for asking.
Come on in.
He motions to the kitchen table.
How are those grandkids doing?
Well, Nathan started to learn how to play the piano and his teacher told him he needs to practice every day for an hour or two. He wasn't happy when he heard that.
Well, I wouldn't want to either. What about Nancy? How's she doing?
Oh, Nancy has just turned 13 and going on 30.
What do you mean by that, Bob?
Oh, sorry, Nick. It's just an expression. It just means that she's only 13 but acts as if she's 30 years old. She likes to pretend she's older than she really is.
Oh, I see. She must be going into high school next year, right?
Yes. Can you believe it?
Huh. Gotta watch out for those boys.
Well, she has her head on straight. One time, 2 guys were bullying her friend Sarah and she had to get physical. Nancy shoved one of the guys against the wall and told the other guy to stop or she'd report it to the principal of the school. The 2 guys backed away and never bothered Sarah again.
Good for her. Wish I had grandkids.
I know, Nick. You're a good guy, compassionate, caring, and very giving. And one day you may find the lady of your dreams, have a family, and end up with grandkids.
Yes, maybe. But my time for that may be over.
Hey, buddy. Now, how's it going at Colleen's clothing store?
Great. I love my job. It'll be 5 years next month.
They should give you a raise or better yet, an award for working all those years.
That would be nice. I should mention my friend Frank is paying a visit.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, what time's he coming?
Very soon.
What do you say, within the next 10 minutes or so?
I believe so. He actually held me by this house.
Oh, really? He must be a real estate broker.
Yes, he is.
Well, it's a beautiful home. The wooden island is very attractive, and not to mention the kitchen. It's an open concept.
Thanks. Frank is in the neighborhood this afternoon, so I've invited him over for a coffee.
Well, that was a nice gesture from you. I cannot wait to meet him. Do you want me to prepare the coffee or anything else before I go out and get you some odds and ends to get you through the week?
Sure, coffee and cookies would be great.
I can do that.
Nick files through the notepad, finds the shopping list and rips it off and hands it to Bob, who puts the cookies on the tray and places them on the kitchen island, and then proceeds to the front door and leaves. Spotlight on Nick. Nick turns to the audience.
You've all heard the saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Pay attention, and you might find out that words can hurt with an accent sometimes.
A knock on the door. Nick answers it.
Hi, Frank.
Nick, how are you?
They nod at each other.
Fine. Come on in.
Frank and Ed walk into the front entrance of the house. Ed is on his cell phone.
Give me a minute.
Son, make it quick.
So, how have you been, Frank?
Not too bad at all.
Got any new coffee mugs lately?
Ah, there's that keen sense of recollection of yours. Yes, I did. I just ordered a brand new cherry red coffee mug with my initials on it.
Ed plugs his ear with his finger, glancing annoyingly at his father for speaking so loudly while he is on the phone.
Great. I know how much you like them.
Yes, in fact, I've collected a few over the years.
Then I have a surprise for you, Frank. Wait here. I'll be right back.
Nick goes into his cupboard and gets a blue mug and returns to the front door where Frank and Ed are still standing.
This is for you.
Oh, Nick, pal. You didn't have to get me anything.
Just a little something I thought you would appreciate.
I do. Thank you kindly. I will add it to my collection.
Shh, I'm on a private call.
We're guests. Show some respect, please, and get off the phone.
Listen, I need to go now. I'll call you later. Thanks. Bye.
He hangs up abruptly, pointing to Ed, hesitant.
Who are you?
He slowly steps backward.
Oh, this is my son, Edwin. Please excuse him. He's just been on a business call.
Hello. I'm Ed Jackson, and that phone conversation was part of my job.
He extends his hand. Nick immediately gets startled and doesn't take the handshake, slightly backing up a step. Ed pulls his hand back, taken aback by this action.
That's great. Nick Kinderwood. It's good to meet you.
Shifting nervously.
Are you going to stay a while, Edwin?
I have no choice.
Rolls his eyes in a cocky manner towards his father.
Look, don't call me Edwin. Call me Ed.
Sure. Come on in, you guys.
They all make their way towards the kitchen. Frank and his son Ed sit down at the table, and Nick goes into the kitchen, making his way over to the kitchen island to prepare the coffee and cookies. Nick pulls out a string from his pocket, flapping his fingers on it while focused on it vigorously. In the autism spectrum, this is called stimming, a self-stimulatory behavior. Ed leers at Nick intensely. Nick now has his back to us, continuing to stim. Then Ed turns towards his father.
What is he doing?
Let it go, son.
Not after the way he treated me.
Why would you say that? He spoke to you nicely.
How about his actions? I go to shake his hand, but he doesn't shake mine. No manners.
You don't understand.
Let me tell you what I understand, okay?
Nick comes in with 2 cups of coffee on a tray and interrupts the conversation.
There you go.
He puts down the coffee on the table.
Thanks, pal.
Nothing better than a good cup of Old Joe, a nice firm handshake. But to me, you should have asked if anyone wanted coffee.
Frank turns briefly to look at his son, unimpressed with his behavior, but trying to keep his cool in keeping things on a positive note.
Oh, sorry. I always serve coffee when guests arrive.
I'm not intended to drink coffee just because it's on the table.
Oh, how about juice or water?
No.
It's okay, Nick. Guess I'll just have 2 cups of Joe myself then.
Nick goes over to the kitchen island and begins to stim again. Ed looks over at him, confused and annoyed at what he's seeing. Nick calms himself down and picks up the tray of cookies and brings them over to the table.
Got to love these chocolate chip cookies. Thanks, Nick.
All of a sudden, Ed gets a vital pain on the left side of his chest.
Is everything okay?
I'll be fine.
Are you sure, son?
I'm certain.
Frank puts his hand on his son's back. We hear a knock on the door.
That's Bob. Come in.
Your homemaker, I presume?
Yes.
What do you need him for?
Frank looks at Ed as if to say, "Why would you say that?" as Bob enters the kitchen area.
Bob, this is Frank and his son, Edwin.
I told you it's Ed. Don't call me Edwin, please.
Oh, sorry. Forgot.
Pleased to meet you both. It's Bob Brown.
Bob places the bag of groceries on the island, then immediately goes to shake both their hands.
Frank?
Bob shakes Frank's hand. He then goes to shake Ed's hand, and Ed makes a remark as he shakes Bob's hand.
Not afraid to shake hands, I see.
He glances over at Nick. Bob looks puzzled.
You'll have to excuse me. I need to put this stuff away and do a little cleaning up in the kitchen for a second.
He leaves for the kitchen.
Laundry today?
Yes, we'll go get to that right after I put all the groceries away for you.
I'm guessing you must get a pretty interesting paycheck for helping him out.
Doesn't bother me none. I'd like to help him out. Right, Nick?
Nick smiles and nods his head.
I have difficulty completing certain tasks.
Everybody does, don't they?
Sometimes, son, people need more help than others.
This whole thing is just strange to me.
Well, things that seem simple to you that may not be a problem for you, Nick can't do. So this is why he needs assistance. This is where I come in.
Wish I had a maid.
I'm not a maid, I'm a homemaker.
Same difference.
Nick begins to stim.
Son, he just needs help in certain areas. Let's not get too fixated here.
Doesn't look to me like he needs help.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Nick begins to stim faster.
What do you think? I'm a fool? I know all about that.
Son, please, this wasn't possible.
Nick stims even faster while mumbling to himself.
It's okay, Nick. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Give me that.
Snatching the string out of Nick's hand.
Ed,
What do you think you're doing? Give him the string back.
It's annoying.
son, that's enough.
Ed tosses the string back to Nick.
Thanks. Please don't do that again. Ed, I have autism and...
Bob interrupts and comes to Nick's aid.
Nick, you don't have to give him an explanation.
I didn't ask for one.
Ed gets up and heads towards the door. Frank gets up.
Gentlemen, please let me have a word with my son.
Go right ahead.
Frank follows his son towards the door. Ed turns to face Frank. Lights down on the set.
What is wrong with you? You are quite frankly embarrassing me.
Like when you left Mom. She probably thought you were an embarrassment, and now, hey, maybe it's rubbing off on me.
First of all, that's a lie, and there's no truth in what you're saying. Second, that's a low blow. Now listen, Nick. Now listen, Nick has a lot of trouble looking someone in the eye and shaking hands. Don't make a big deal out of it.
I'm not. He's ill-mannered. Can't he be trained to be polite?
Son, he's being juvenile and judgmental again.
How so?
Just go back into the kitchen, take a seat, and mute it. That's all I ask.
Fine. 5 more minutes of this, and I'm gone.
Lights back on the set. Ed sits down at the table, followed by Frank.
So sorry about that.
Not a problem.
So, Nick, good location to have housing, I must say.
Your father was gracious enough to help me buy it.
Are you able to do anything on your own?
Bob loses control of his emotions and becomes very angry.
Excuse me? How insensitive can you be?
Look, I didn't plan on being here, so you can just stop lecturing me on my insensitivities, Mr. Homemaker.
The name's Bob.
As if I didn't know that.
Do you know, Ed, I'm not fancying this conversation one bit.
Not my problem. It's my dad who brought me here.
Yeah, well, that's evident.
I think you should calm down, Ed.
Don't tell me to calm down. I wasn't talking to you anyway.
I just was trying to help.
Well, you're not.
You really just don't get it, do you? You don't have any respect for people with disabilities. You should. Do you understand?
Society doesn't understand, so why should I?
So do you just blindly follow society, not have a mind of your own? People with a disability are a unique asset to the world we live in. They are truly special and have their own gifts and talents. Each person with autism is different. So if you meet one person with autism, you would have only met one person with autism.
Is this what you do for a living? Lecture people on their insensitive dialect and on special needs?
I'm not here to lecture anyone. It's common courtesy that if you see an autistic person anywhere, treat them with respect and dignity. That goes for all people, not just those with disabilities.
Do you really think I have such a high regard for these disabled people?
You should.
Well, I don't. And that's good enough for me.
Ed stands up and suddenly he gets an extremely dizzy spell and almost falls over, holding himself up by grabbing the chair in front of him. Frank immediately turns to go to his aid, putting his hand on his shoulder, very concerned.
You okay, son?
I'm I'm fine.
You're not. You just about fell over. Why don't you sit down?
Look, I'm good. I just need to get out of here.
I don't think so. Nick, can you get him a glass of water?
Sure.
Ed sits down at the table. Nick goes over to the island and returns with a glass of water and puts it on the table in front of Ed.
Here you go.
Hey, let's not make a big deal out of this.
Only a glass of water.
Ed scowls at Nick, then turns to his father.
Can we go now?
In a few minutes, son. You're not in a condition to leave at this moment.
Ed scoffs.
I'm just done with this interrogation from all.
Is that what you think? We're interrogating you?
It's pretty clear to me that you are.
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, is it?
You're unquestionably inconsiderate.
Well then, let's call a spade a spade. If you think I'm unquestionably inconsiderate, I think your friend's a retard.
Don't call me that.
Ed walks over to Nick.
I already did.
Lights strobe onto the stage with intensity. Nick loses control as the anxiety overwhelms him, and he begins to finally smack his head with his hands over and over, yelling out loud in Ed's face as his final two slaps hit Ed directly in the chest. Ed is taken aback and reacts by lunging forward towards Nick and is stopped dead in his tracks by Father Frank, who grabs a hold of Ed while Bob grabs Nick.
You put your hands on me, you freak show!
Ed yells at Nick over Frank's shoulder, who has full control of him in a bear hug and who is extremely angry at his son.
Let's go home now.
All of a sudden, Ed's phone rings. Ed is distracted from his confrontation. Nick begins to stim again while breathing heavily. Ed's phone keeps ringing. Frank moves away and answers the phone. The phone is on the table.
Hello?
Frank's face loses its colour as he turns towards his son.
Son?
Frank extends the phone towards Ed.
I'm not in the mood for a call.
You need to take this.
I already told you no.
It's the doctor.
That stops Ed dead in his tracks. A moment of silence before Ed snatches his phone from his father.
Hello, Ed Jackson speaking.
Ed begins walking off stage as he listens to his doctor on the phone. There is silence for a few seconds before Ed returns to the stage with his phone by his side, looking directly at his father. Nothing needs to be said. Frank knows everything just from Ed's demeanour. Ed slowly walks to the table, puts his phone down, and sits quietly in his chair. Frank, upset, moves to his son and puts his hand on his son's shoulder.
Frank?
Frank?
I'm so sorry, son. Oh, can you hear me?
What's going
Yeah.
on? Frank?
My son has been diagnosed with the most severe case of multiple sclerosis.
Blackout. 6 months later, Nick's home. A knock on the door. Nick answers it and is taken aback for a moment when he sees Ed pushing a walker towards him. It takes a couple of seconds before Nick realizes who he is looking at. Ed breaks the silence and speaks first.
Hello, Nick. If you want me to leave, I can and I will, but if you could give me a minute, I would like to have a word with you.
Okay. It's been a little while. Come in.
They enter as Ed follows Nick, making his way to the kitchen table, pushing his walker, and takes a seat on his own at the table.
Can I offer you a coffee?
Yes, I'd love one. Thanks.
Nick goes over to the kitchen island to pour him a cup of coffee.
Is Bob here?
It's his day off today.
Nick places the cup of coffee in front of Ed at the table and then takes a seat.
I have something for you.
Ed slowly reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small blue string and hands it to Nick. The blue represents autism, and the string is what Nick uses for stimming. Nick takes the string and smiles.
Thank you.
Ed takes a sip of his coffee and then takes a moment to contemplate before speaking.
Look, Nick, as hard as it is to say, let me just say it. I was rude, selfish, and inconsiderate, and I had no compassion for people like you, which is totally unacceptable. I'm ashamed of myself with what I did and what I said. Saying sorry is just a word, and it doesn't change the past, but it can change the future. I am hoping you can find it somewhere in your heart to please accept my sincere apology.
Nick looks down and begins to stim, and then stops. He slowly looks up at Ed and cautiously begins to extend his hand towards him.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Ed reaches out to shake Nick's hand.
Ed, there was a time in my life where I thought I wouldn't get any help or anyone would not care. I was lucky to have met Bob Brown, who became my homemaker. He has taken good care of me throughout the years, and I'll never forget that. Should there ever be a time when you're in distress, when you feel alone, when you feel discriminated against, when you feel the rules are not in your favor?
The lights on stage begin to fade.
You just need love and support. I will be there.
Lights fade to black.
I promise you, I will be there.
2 years later, outside of Nick's home, a sad soundtrack begins, and shortly afterward, Frank and Bob enter from stage left, talking to one another across the stage. Nick follows behind them, pushing Ed in his wheelchair and placing him center stage, where a spotlight comes upon him. Nick backs away from the wheelchair and gazes forward. Lights fade to black, with the soundtrack fading simultaneously.
And
Well done, Matteo.